And what was that? And that was that I'm not enough, and that I'm always alone, and that I'm unlovable. And it wasn't true. None of that was true. I've got a fabulous family. I've got amazing friends. And yet I still told myself that.
So you're not doing anything deliberately to make someone sad, but your happiness is not my responsibility. You got to find your own happiness, right?
Yeah. Once we realise that, it's like if I'm not happy, I need to do something differently. I can blame other people, but it's not relevant. No, it's not real. Just might make me avoid the actual issue for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So once we understand that happiness is ours to own,
things change. It's a game changer, right?
Yeah.
Most of us would have been very self-critical. Not many of us can actually stand in front of the mirror and say, I love you, girl. Welcome to Her Own Narrative. And today's guest is somebody who's actually very curious. She's an author and she is a thinking partner. Makes me curious here. Today, welcome, Kim. Kim, please tell everybody, what does a thinking partner do?
Neety, thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thinking partner sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? I guess in essence, it is about creating a psychologically safe space to be able to strategically and intentionally think at board level. So as an ex-board level leader who has had a corporate career, I understand the challenges that there can be in those moments where you've got to make a decision, but certainty isn't always available to you. And having somebody who understands that pressure and is able to sit with you while you think intentionally and can be invaluable. I have found it invaluable when I had one of my own, and now I have the joy of doing that for other people.
It sounds incredible. Right. So I'm going to just start with my favorite question. Who is Kim? Let's strip all these titles away, right? Author, thinking partners, ex-CEO, and mother as well. Yeah, right? Let's strip all these titles and roles. Who is Kim?
Who am I? It's always a great question because we hide behind those labels, those roles, and very often we don't realize we're hiding. We think they're defining us. But I had to go through a big journey to work out who am I? Mm-hmm. And I guess at heart, I'm still who I've always been. I'm curious by nature. I'm intrigued with what's going on in the world. I love other people. I love stories. I'm a natural born storyteller. And I think the best storytellers are the people that have the most stories. And you get those by listening to people and understanding what's going on for them. And it's taken me a long time to journey back to myself. But I started off my career as a hairdresser. Because that's all I ever wanted to do, hear people's stories and make them feel better about themselves. And I've tried to keep that central to what I do, but I lost my way along the way in trying to be what I thought everybody else expected me to be. And I'm fearing that I wasn't enough.
Yes. That I'm not enough. So you're always on a run to keep doing. That brings me to an essential question. So what season are you in right now?
I'm in the season of being. I've just being and not caring, because that doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah.
But not caring too much. And what I mean by that is stupid little things like when I'm in the playground with my little girl, she loves to run across the playground and throw herself bodily at you, or we'll dance in there. And if you'd taken me back 10 years, I would never have done that, because I would have been concerned what people thought. And did they think I wasn't professional enough, or I wasn't? Actually, I'm just being present with her. And that's we're just having fun, and we're enjoying the moment and making it a little bit more lighthearted. And for me, that shows how far I've come as a person, that actually I'm willing to appear silly in front of other people without being concerned that defines me as silly as a human being.
So you're being present to whatever you feel at that moment.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, that's great, isn't it? Because not many of us are. We're just always worried about the next, or the consequences, or the people, or whatever. And then you forget that being present in the moment.
It's so true. And, it's been a big journey. I mean, I you have to pay a lot of prices to get there. But the thing that I've learned on this journey is that what we're fearful of hasn't happened yet.
No.
We've had to imagine it.
Mm.
And the same is true of what we're hopeful for. Hasn't happened yet. We've had to imagine it. We've imagined it in exactly the same brain. So neither one of them is more likely or more credible than the other. And yet somehow we choose to believe that what we're fearful of is more likely and more credible. So I remind myself of that constantly. When I find myself spiraling into fear, I'm like, hold on, that's no more likely and no more credible than what I'm hopeful for happening.
Yeah.
So I can choose to try and move towards what I'm hopeful for, or I can stay anchored to what I'm fearful of.
So, you know what you just said, interestingly, you said, so it's been a journey. And obviously we come to this midlife, and then suddenly it's a common scenario that a lot of women say, I just do what I need to do now. I'm more present and I want to do things for myself. What shifts for a woman, you think, when you start getting in this phase of your life?
Oh, that's a great question. Because I think for me, my shift started slightly earlier when I realized that I was modeling what good looked like for my daughter. And what good look like wasn't what I was doing. It wasn't what I was saying about myself. It wasn't how I was showing up and being present. So I wasn't very kind to myself. And so my shift came it started to come when Scarlett was about 1. And I realized that unless I changed the voice in my head, it would become the voice in her head. And so I started to go on that journey. But talking to other women, I think when we get to this sort of age, you start to realize that probably as much of your life's gone as is coming ahead. And that's a very sobering moment.
Oh, it is.
Yes. For you to then go, do I really want to think this about myself for the rest of my life? And I think the other thing that we realize at this age is people come and go in our lives. And the things that at the time we thought we were going to be in our lives forever, we now realize the reality is, through whatever reason, that isn't going to be the case. And that dawning realization that wherever you go, you go. So you can't outrun yourself. So if you don't like yourself, you kind of need to take some stock and make some changes, because you're going to be with yourself for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And clearly you made those changes, say 8 years ago, from being ex-CEOs of companies and directors. It had a great corporate career you did. And then you changed the whole trajectory of it, right? And you became this creative person who's come with a creative concept of being a thinking partner. Tell our audience, what work do you do now?
So I do a bit of combination. So I work with boards and chair people, in that strategic thinking space. I also write books, across genres. So I've done one that's a children's book. I've done one that's a leadership book. I have a TV show, fortnightly, which is about helping other people share their authentic journey. And I'm a mum, and I love that. It's one of the most rewarding roles I think I've ever had, and it's taught me so much about leadership. The way a child negotiates is brutal. So when you start to see some of the skills that you developed over that 30-odd year career in corporate actually being put to use in something that is going to outlive you, and that is how you bring somebody up, how you help them to find their sense of self, and how you allow that to shape itself without controlling it, is how you lead.
That's crazy, isn't it? What you've just said, it's like being a leader and a parent at the same time. How you lead without controlling, is the biggest thing a leader got to learn, because it's like letting go trusting your team, trusting your child, and let them make their own decisions. Yeah. Lead from the top rather than.
It's so true, because one of the things I learned as a leader is that you've got to be able to share vulnerability without losing credibility. So there's a balance. So if you're just overly vulnerable, then you're not going to be very credible.
Right.
But you have to share enough so that people can feel safe to share some of theirs, right? And collectively we grow. And I think that kind of gets underlined as a parent, because you realise that we all have vulnerability. We all have those elements, but being able to sit with that and not use it as a blame element internally is so important. And I didn't learn that until late into my 40s. When I had to go and unpick what I had been telling myself for years and what I'd allowed to be the internal blueprint of my life.
And what was that?
And that was that I'm not enough, that I'm always alone, and that I'm unlovable. And it wasn't true. None of that was true. I've got a fabulous family. I've got amazing friends. And yet I still told myself that. And I think that's because, we create these, I call them I am statements, and we create them at the age of 7, and we enforce them at the age of 14, and we embed them at the age of 21. And unless we go back and look at them, they become the unheard blueprint that makes everything make sense. And then if you look at that, I'm 53 this year. So if I'd not gone back and looked at it, I'd be talking about 32-year-old software that I'm allowing to run my operating system. And I use that term because we all have a phone and we all know what we do the second it says there's a software update. Immediate panic, must put it in. We need to fix those bugs. We need to fix those updates. We're driven by it. But we don't think to do the same
for ourselves. That's crazy. No, you've just said something, and I want to delve a little bit more into it. Be vulnerable. Vulnerability without losing your credibility. I mean, I love this statement. Absolutely. I think it's going to be one of my favorites. I'm even drop it all the time. Every podcast, I get something. This is why I do what I do, because it's curiosity and it's just learning from everybody who comes around. How do you do that with your kids?
That's a really great question, and a really hard thing to do,
because if you're vulnerable, then it's sometimes you don't want them to feel like mum's weak. Yeah, and B, you don't know if it's going to turn around and get whacked in your face as well.
Yeah, I think for me, what I do is go, if I'm expecting her to be vulnerable, then I have to demonstrate I'm willing to be as well, but with a level of appropriateness. So, for example, if I've got something wrong, I'll apologize to her and I'll explain what I got wrong and what I'm going to do about it. And I share with her all the time, every one of us is learning. Every day is a school day. So as long as we are learning, as long as we take the lesson, then there's no downside. But we have to take the accountability. And it's kind of balancing that to say there are some things that are not hers to see. They're mine to carry. But where there are appropriate ways to be vulnerable, such as, Mummy got that wrong. Mummy messed up there, and I'm sorry about that. And it wasn't my intention, but it was my impact. And I talk to her a lot about that, because whenever anything goes wrong in life, in general, and you have those difficult conversations, they're always a challenge because you're not both having the same conversation. So one of you is talking about the impact that the other person had. The other person is talking about what they intended to have happen. And so you can't move forward because you're having two totally different conversations. And so I try and talk to her in an age-appropriate way about the fact that let's talk first about what we were trying to do. So here's what we were trying to do. Now we can talk about what actually happened. And then we can say, where was the gap between what we tried to do and what actually happened? Because that's the lesson that we've got to make sure we don't do the same thing next time.
Very interesting. I'm speechless right now. I'm just listening. I'm trying to process it down. Very, very interesting. And it's same for being at work, or working with the team or with your kids and family. It's like, you're right. People are actually having two different conversations, right? So somebody's talking from, hey, this happened and this is what happened because of it, the impact.
Yeah,
And while you're probably explaining the intention behind it.
exactly. And yeah, the challenge that we have is neuroscientifically, our emotional brain responds 24 times faster than our thinking brain. So we think that we are logical beings, but the reality is our emotional brain gets there first. So something happens and we make it mean something.
Yes.
But what I make it mean might be very different to what you make it mean, because it'll be based on our experience, our emotions, what's happened in the past. And so one of the questions that I use all of the time for myself is, what is actually happening and what am I making it mean? Because it allows me to catch myself in that moment of going, oh, look, I've ran away with the ball. Nowhere near where we were heading.
Yeah.
Because it's triggered something emotional in me.
Kim, it sounds like you've done a lot of work on yourself. Like there's a lot of thinking process that's gone into you for you to be actually coming up with saying, this is how I operate. This is how I think. This is how I say, hang on a second, you're running off. So that's not something that just happens to you. It feels like it's been a constant work on yourself. What was that moment in your life where you thought, this is going to shift. Something is going to change here and I will start from myself.
So I guess I've always had a passion to learn more, driven by my I'm not enough. Like the more I can learn, the further I can distance myself from that. But my real critical moment was, it was actually when Scarlett was 9 months old, and I had a health scare, and I wasn't sure if I was going to survive. And I went to write her the letter that would cram in all of the advice and love and everything that I wanted to share with her. And I didn't really know where to start that letter, because how do you start that letter? And so I went and I decided that I would go and have a look at her. Bad idea. So I was already very emotional. And I crept into a room and I looked at her, and it suddenly hit me that the voice in our head becomes the voice we teach our children to have as the voice in her head. And it was like the world stopped, because the voice in my head wasn't kind. It wasn't nice. It was nice to everybody else, but it was not nice to me. And I realized that I needed to go and make a change. And so I remember praying and saying, if you give me more time with her, I will do whatever it takes to change the voice in my head, to be one I'd like her to have in hers. One that sees the value, sees the beauty, sees the uniqueness of every single soul in the world, including their own. And so I was granted more time, and it started, I went to counselling, and I did lots of self-help. I did lots of thinking. I had to do some unpicking. I had to pay the price of some harsh truths. I had to forgive myself for being responsible for everything that came into my life, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And there's some dark times in journeying back to yourself.
100%. 100%. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. But it was worth it, I think. And every time I see that little person and see how she's growing and exploring the world, it reminds me why it's so important, not just for her, but for me.
Yeah. So, you know what you said? You had to unpick a lot.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, what were you before that?
I was a performer. I did what I thought other people wanted. I absorbed everything that people sent my way. I guess I started unpicking it over the years. I got told early on-ish in my corporate life that I didn't have the gravitas or the vocabulary to meet my potential. So I changed to have more gravitas, and I learned a new vocabulary until I realized my people didn't understand me, and I needed to change it. And then I guess as the years went on, as I got a little bit older, I suddenly realized it was too heavy to carry everything. And I think the first time I started to kind of let some of this move, was when I realized how disjointed I was from other people's reality. So I was given my first coach. And I remember sitting down with them, and they were like, tell us what's going on for you. Like, well, a rubbish of a job. And they went, okay. And
sorry, remind me, what were you doing at that point?
so I was head of sales to UK, and she's rubbish of a job. Rubbish of a job.
Just being head.
Yeah. And he said, do you have any evidence to back that up? And I went, no, but at least I know it. At least I know it's right. And he was like, okay. He said, is there any evidence you might be good at your job? I went, no, none. And he went, okay. Might I give you some facts? And I was like, please do, because I just want to change. And he was like, have you not just hit your third quarter of double-digit growth? And I went, weird. He said, do you not have the highest employee engagement in the entire global organization? And I said, in fact, isn't it higher than the 5-year aspiration? I went, mm-hmm. And he went, did you just get leader of the year? And I went, yeah. He said, so given these facts, do you still think you're not good at your job? I'm like, absolutely. And he was like, wow, okay. And now I hear that myself and go, wow, you were disjointed. But that's where I was.
Wow.
And one of the things he got me to do, and I highly recommend it to anybody listening, is he made me go and ask friends, family, colleagues, to be really honest with me, because I wanted to do something to help my self-development. And could they tell me one or two things that they saw as strengths, or they admired in what you did, and one or two ways where I get in my own way? And what came back almost unanimously was brave and fearless. And I was like, I live in fear every minute of every day. Fear of being found out, fear of everybody noticing I'm really not good at what I do, fear that they might spot that they put the hairdresser on the board and throw me off. So I was like, it's odd, isn't it? What we see, like, just in it, this is what we do to ourselves. It's so true. And so I had to go back and ask some clarifying questions. And so I brave and fearless, tell me more. And what came back was, you will literally up sticks and move across the country to somewhere where you don't know anybody for a job you're not convinced you can do. And we think that's brave and fearless. And it's interesting. I spent all my life thinking you all thought I was flighty and a little bit stupid. Same lived experience, totally different day, but it's crazy. Yeah. So they are actually thinking you're brave, and you're saying, oh, they might think I'm stupid. Exactly.
Wow.
And
that defined you is the biggest issue, right?
Exactly. Oh, and it was, so there's those elements where you really had to, you really had to journey back to where you were. I remember one of my hardest things I ever had to do when I was first sat with a counsellor, and they said, tell me 3 things you like about yourself. And it was the worst 45 minutes of my life, because anything I came up with got shut down. I said, I've got great friends, not about you. I've got a beautiful husband, not about you. I've got a lovely family, not about you. So thick. Okay. And after about 40 minutes, I managed to come up with, I've got nice eyes. I've got nice eyes.
That's all you said.
That was it. That is how far away from where I was.
Tell me what you love about yourself today.
I love how I show up in the world. I love my kindness. I love that I come at things from a position of compassion. I love my humor. I love my sense of self. And I love all the parts of me, even the ones that still need to be fixed, because they're mine.
I love it. So how many years ago was it when you were sitting there and saying, I might love my eyes?
7.
Around
7 years.
How far have you come along?
Yes, it's night and day.
How proud are you of yourself?
I'm really proud of myself. And that's something I never thought I'd say. I'm really proud of myself. And one of the things that I now do is I proactively celebrate the little wins as well as the big ones. And I do so with Scarlett. So every day we do a what are we grateful for and what are we celebrating today? And that celebration could be a lesson we've learned, or it could be an achievement that we've done. And we celebrate both equally.
You need celebration. Go, I'll have a chocolate. Thank you. Because you are amazing.
Shoo, that's so kind.
Do you know what you've just said? So these 7 years ago, when you were sitting with your therapist and the counselor said, what you love is about yourself, you have nothing to say. Today, you've got a long list, which is absolutely, I think everybody should love themselves. But it's a journey, just a journey. Most of us would have been very self-critical. Not many of us can actually stand in front of the mirror and say, I love you, girl. Yeah, right? It takes a long way. And we need, every single human being needs to be there because you've got to love yourself for anything in life. What was that one set of belief which you had to let go from not liking yourself to being obsessed with yourself? What was that one thing that, like, you know what, I'm going to let go of that belief?
The need for perfection was the one I had to let go. So I'd driven myself to try and be perfect and to constantly look for the things that weren't perfect. And I had a boss who once shared with me, he said, Kim, I've never met anybody who beats themselves up as regularly and as harshly as you do. And if it weren't for the fact it was so tragic, it would be a key skill. I mean, that's feedback. That's feedback. But I couldn't see it then. And he said, like, whenever you get any feedback, you ignore the good stuff and you hone in on the stuff that could do better, that could be different. And I saw that as developing myself until I realized that actually that drive for perfection meant you never actually got to accept how far you'd come because you were only looking at how far you still had to go. And so losing that, letting go of, putting down the burden of needing to be perfect, something I could never achieve anyway, because there is nobody called perfect. We are not perfectly imperfect.
Yes.
Was probably the number one driver in being able to affect the change.
So, that need of not being enough, need of being perfect, need of being, liked or whatever it is. Do you think that when you start working on yourself and start working with counselors and things, did it go back to something ingrained in you when you were a child?
There were bits that came from my childhood. There were bits that came from adult life. So there were parts where I could see the patterns that formed, where I looked for proof that those statements were right, and I ignored any evidence that they were wrong, because that felt validated and safe. And so it was a journey, and one of the things that they got me to do, and for me personally, this really helped. Had to put a picture of myself as a young child, on my desk. And every time I'm being mean to myself, I have to look at the picture of the child and say it out loud. Because it's child. It's me. I understand it's a he.
So interesting.
But it is a child. And the fact that my little girl looks so like me at that age, I couldn't be me to her. I couldn't be me to her.
Gosh.
And so I guess it was in looking at that part of going, you are lovable, but you have to love yourself first. Not at the expense of other people.
No.
But you don't have to lose yourself either. And that for me was a massive shift.
So that thin line of not lose yourself, but don't do it at the expense of others as well. How do you know where and what? There must have been costs here as well to find yourself. Yes, you briefly did touch upon that there was.
Yeah, there's some are. There are. I mean, there's huge costs, like there's financial cost, there's emotional cost. You lose some friendships and some relationships when you realize that they're not. If you're not going to be there in the same way that you used to be, some people can't accept that, and that's hard. That's a hard one to step away from. But I realized that the only person whose happiness we're responsible for is our own. I can't be happy if I'm doing that at the expense of somebody else, but I can allow myself to not be accountable for their happiness. So I'm not going to do anything that harms anybody. I'm not going to do anything that makes anybody that makes anybody sad, but I'm not going to take responsibility for their happiness anymore. And that has been a massive shift.
Wow, that's interesting what you just said. So you're not doing anything deliberately to make someone sad, but your happiness is not my responsibility. You've got to find your own happiness, right?
Yeah.
Wow, because that's interesting.
Can't ever make somebody else happy.
And that's true for ourselves as well. No one can actually make us happy. It's got to come from, we have to do ours.
Yeah. And once we realise that, it's like if I'm not happy, I need to do something differently. I can blame other people, but it's not relevant.
No.
It's not real. Just might make me avoid the actual issue for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So once we understand that happiness is ours to own,
things change. It's a game changer, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk about this version of Kim who's sitting here thriving right now, right? She's doing a business which she got onto the journey about 8 years ago. Yes, yeah, 8 years ago, leaving her successful corporate career, and she started loving the version of Kim she is today. Yeah, you got her very successful, very driven. What keeps you going every day?
What keeps me going? One is my little girl.
She's that
yes, she's your beautiful ass. She's my North Star. And I strive to always give her the best example of me to help her choose whoever she wants to be. But I guess equally my drive is, it kind of balances something my grandpa had said. So my nan said, every day is a school day. So every day we should learn something. And my granddad said, live each day as if it should last, and one day you'll be right. And I guess that's my drive for every day is, what have I learned and have I made the most of today? Because tomorrow's not promised.
No.
And yesterday no longer needs me.
Interesting. Very, very interesting, that is. Thank you for that. So obviously the success has changed. What does success mean to you?
Success to me now is in the moments that are priceless. It's in the shared laughter with somebody that you connect with, whether that's a family member, a friend, somebody you just meet. It's in those moments where you are intentional and present and absorbing it all. It's when you get to that place where you can recognize that everything in life is a lesson, a blessing, or both. And that when you're not feeling blessed, you look for the lesson and the blessing's there. Allows you to live with a peace.
I think it does. When you start thinking success is actually aligned with your values, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
When you can get up, I've always said I've yet to meet a woman who can put mascara on without looking herself in the eye. And so I know at least once a day, I'm going to have to look at myself in the eye. And I no longer recoil in disgust with them.
Yeah. Wow. And that's success. For me, that's loving yourself is the biggest thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
What would you tell a woman who's feeling very lost right now and probably listening to you and thinking, I'm disjointed, I'm disconnected? Where should she even start?
So, first, I feel you. Yeah, I've been there. I've been in that place where I'm laying on the floor thinking I don't know how to breathe anymore. That's how low I got at some point. But sit with yourself in kindness. Look at yourself in the mirror while you're saying some of these things to yourself and go, is that really how I feel? Is that really how I feel? And is that how I want to feel? And for me, one of the greatest gifts I had was I found this moment where I was telling myself awful things and my inner imposter was going all over the place. And somebody who I really admired and aspired to be like was telling me I was really good at something. And I remember in that moment having this conversation with myself going, well, if only you knew what I knew. If only you knew how hopeless I was. And I caught myself in that moment and went, hold on a sec. you're saying that your opinion that you're rubbish is more likely and more credible than this person you aspire to be like, so it is that you're good. But I don't believe that at all. So I'm going to borrow their belief. And I'm going to do everything in my power to not let them down. And belief, for me, is the greatest gift we have. It's a gift we can share. I do Scott all of the time. I borrow my belief in you. So the thing I would say is, if you're feeling lost and you don't know where it is, borrow the belief of the people around you. Ask them, what do you see? Can you help me to understand one or two things that you go, she's really good there. She nails that bit. And get it from different perspectives. You will find there is an absolute thread. And then borrow that belief and build your own to align to it.
Wow. That is so true. So true, because a lot of people say, surround yourself with people who believe in you. Not because they're going to clap for you when nobody else is. It's because they're making you believe in yourself. It's true. And I think that changes every day.
And it helps us do the impossible. So when we're kids, and I got this, we were watching Scarlett and her little friends, like they were learning to walk. Now, if I said tomorrow when you get up, you're going to have to learn how to walk again or talk again, you'd be overwhelmed. And yet, you're most vulnerable. You did it. And I believe that's down to belief in two parts. The first thing is, as kids, we think we're just like our parents. If you can do it, I can do it, because we're the same. My little things were twins. But the second is, I've yet to see a child learn to walk that doesn't have at least one adult nearby going, come on, you've got this.
That's so true, isn't it? So we're teaching them teaching them biking, running, walking, crawling. You're saying, come on, you can do it.
Absolutely. We give them our belief. And we do it every day with everybody we meet. When we ask somebody to do something, it's because we believe that they're going to be successful. But we don't take the time to tell them that. So every time you're asked to do something, it's because the other person believes you're capable. So borrow that belief and keep augmenting it. Take a moment every day to go. So I ask myself here today, where have I touched somebody? And what I mean by that is, where's some of them? Oh, I think that was really helpful, or that was really useful, or they had a big beam on their face. You've recognized that you've positively impacted the other person. What have I learned? And some of my learns can be things went better than I thought. So I didn't need to waste all that time worrying about it. And therefore, what am I going to celebrate? Because in every day, there is something to celebrate, even the dark days.
Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. What would you tell younger Kim today if you could just sit her down and say, in the picture you had in your room?
Yeah, I would say, believe in yourself. I think I would probably go, I wrote this quote for my little girl, and I believe it to be true of everybody. I would say to her to be kind, be curious, dream big, take action, and believe, because you approve miracles happening.
They do.
And I think that's true for everybody.
Thank you, Kim. What an insightful and touching conversation. One thing before we go, what did reclaiming yourself do to you today?
Reclaiming myself has been such a journey. I think what it's given me is peace. A peace to live with all parts of me. The parts that I'd still like to work on, the parts that are pretty, and the parts that I'm proudest of. And to acknowledge that that's okay, because we are perfectly imperfect. And that's enough. It's enough.
You're enough. So gorgeous the way you are. Thank you. Thank you so much. If you are someone who's listening to this and feeling lost, disconnected, and maybe not enough, please listen to this podcast again. And if you don't believe in yourself, go and borrow the belief from someone else who actually believes in you. That's what Kim just showed us, told us how things have just turned. Thank you for listening. Until next time, her own narrative with me. Thank you.